What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dream Chasers Ground Zero. Today I have with us Marc Cesar. Marc, will you please just kind of paint us a picture of what your personal ground zero was like for you? Just kind of tell us about the feelings that you were having during that time. And then as you transformed out of that state, what were some of the things that you started to do and skills you started to develop to get yourself out of that position and get you to where you are today?
Man, Aaron, I appreciate you bringing me on here on your platform and what's going on, everyone. So again, my name is Marc Cesar, and my ground zero started back in 2012. To be honest with you, I was never the type of guy who really sat well with a W-2 job. You know, of course, you need it to make ends meet, but it just never really stuck with me. And my dad always told me I was an entrepreneur at heart. He saw that in me, and I came across Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like most entrepreneurs, read it, fell in love with it, and it really clicked. And I decided I wanted to get into real estate from there. I just didn't know how to do it. Young guy in my 20s, little to no money. So I had that notion that real estate was for the big guys, the one percenters. And I just started reading a lot. YouTube, thank God for YouTube at that time. So just really relied on YouTube, and I started wholesaling, which is basically where you find, distressed houses, and, you buy the equitable rights and assign it to someone who's going to fix it up and, put a renter in there or give it, sell it to a first-time home buyer. So I started doing that, but it really took me a while to really get the gist of doing it, because it took me literally 2 years to get my first deal done. And most people might find that crazy, but that's my ground zero. I didn't know how to do it. Again, I'm leaning on YouTube, didn't have money to pay for coaching. So I'm just trying to figure everything out as I go along. And, I really had to buckle down and, just start talking to people who are experts in that field. And, again, thank God for social media. Facebook was a big thing as well. So I just, started really marketing myself out on Facebook. And luckily I found my then partner, who's based in Philadelphia. And I reached out to her. I told her, hey, listen, if I can bring, these sellers in front of you, can we close a deal together? And she said, yeah, just bring it to me. And I don't want to put her on the spot. She sort of doubted the fact that I mentioned that. So she thought I wasn't going to do it. And as soon as we hung up the phone, I just literally went to work. I just went to town, started handwriting letters and started mailing them out, just licking stamps, handwriting letters. And lo and behold, within a week, someone said, hey, I want to sell my house. And I called her back. I said, hey, listen, I got this house. The person want to sell it. What can we do? She was surprised that I called back, and that turned out to be my first deal after, 2 years later in 2014, 2015. So that really opened my eyes to that. As you don't want to stay at the bottom. You don't want to, there will be obstacles. There will be, trials and tribulations in the journey, but you have to be resilient. You have to figure out a way to get back up and, get the ball rolling. It's either you're going to do so, or you're just going to stay there and die. Sorry for the gory allegory, but that's just what it is. I hear a lot of people who are looking for the microwave success, overnight success, and I'm here to tell you it doesn't happen unless you're a trust fund kid. So I'm not. So I had to really just hustle and grind and work my behind off to get to where I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just want to say I love the story. I love it. I personally, what's the word? Related to a lot of the things that you spoke about there. Rich Dad Poor Dad was also the first book on real estate that I read, so I can definitely relate there, to where it really just kind of gave me a whole new perspective on everything that I thought I knew prior to that point. And then I'm trying to think. See, this is what I was talking about when I said I stumble. One of the things that I really liked that you mentioned there was that it took you roughly 2 years to find your first deal. And I know that, like you said, a lot of people nowadays are really trying to find that overnight success, trying to find that shortcut. But really what it comes down to, like you said, is you just have to dig in, and you have to realize that there really are no shortcuts. You just have to put in the work. And that's where you're going to build the skills that you need. And, like I said, excel at those skills to the point that you're going to be able to become successful in that business. And that's where I kind of want to circle back to, like you said, where it took you roughly 2 years to lock in that first deal, because a lot of people now like I said, I keep repeating myself here, but a lot of people are trying to go like for some sort of overnight success, but it takes time and it takes work over that entire time. It takes compounding. And that's where I pretty much just want to ask you, like, how were you able to stay motivated during that time? Because a lot of people are like they struggle to stick with the habits and stuff that they're trying to build now because they don't see results. They don't see, enough progression where they want to stick with it and where they can see themselves growing simultaneously. So they don't stay motivated enough to continue doing that. But to not really see a result for almost 2 years, that's a pretty big feat. So that's why I just wanted to ask you kind of what was going through your head at those times and, how you were able to kind of keep yourself plugged in, stay focused on the end goal and, continue pushing.
Sure. Great question, man. I would like to say I'm cut from a different cloth, most than compared to most people. Um, Again, at that time, no money, college kid, just fresh out of finished my second year of college, no job, well, had a job at the time, but my motivation was it's whenever I start something, I always want to finish it. And I guess I get that from my dad. He's the type of guy where that mindset is, I start something, make sure you finish it. And he drilled that in me. Do not leave thing half done. And I carry that to this day and I pass this down to my children today. I like to really hone in and try to stay optimistic. There's a lot of negativity out there. There are things there are people who will tell you, hey, this isn't working. Why are you still doing it? Why are you still at it? And as we know, the old, I think it's the old story where you're 3 feet from gold. You have the guy who are digging for gold and they don't see anything. They just walk away while the other guy, he just keep digging and he literally finds a pot of gold. I'm the type of guy. I will keep drilling and drilling until I get to my pot of gold. I don't care how long it takes. And now that I'm studying a lot of the successful millionaires and billionaires, like great example, Grant Cardone, I did not know when he got into the multifamily space, he literally took 3 years. For a guy who's great at sales, a guy who has a lot of money, he can easily write a check and buy a building, but it took him 3 years to get his first multifamily deal. That blew my mind. And as I'm studying a lot of these, big guys, successful individuals, I'm realizing a sort of a similar comparison that they too face obstacles, but they do not let the obstacle define them. They take action. And I always preach this every day for anyone who knows me. I always say the small actions you take today will lead to massive results. So I pretty much just kept my head down. I chiseled at everything. I wrote the letters. I kept writing the letters. I got rejected 1,000 times. I kept writing the letters. And eventually I struck gold and closed my first deal. So again, it's all a mindset. It all starts with the mind. So you really have to train your mind to not just see the problem, but you want to sort of look past the problem and see that the solution is there, the goal is there, but you have to put in the work. You have to take those small attainable steps and actions, and then you will get those massive results.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's an extremely powerful story there that you just told. So I'm just kind of letting that simmer for a second as I'm taking it in. But I really like the part that you mentioned about not letting your obstacles define you. And you didn't kind of say it outright, but along that time, you can tell that you were able to become okay with failure in a sense, because you knew going in that you were going to be rejected at some point or another. But that's part of the business, and that's part of just growing. That's part of who you're going to become. You just kind of have to get used to that. But you also have to learn how to capitalize on those. And you were able to take every one of those experiences and put them into the next letter and put them into the next letter until finally, like you said, you struck gold and you were able to figure it out. And now, obviously, you're working on much better things and you're not necessarily striking out as often as you were. Now you know what you're doing. You've been able to refine that process and continue to grow. So now, kind of segueing off of that, I also want to circle back to something that you mentioned in the beginning. And it was that you more or less just mentioned that one of the things that separates you is that you follow through on promises. And that I think is extremely important. And I kind of wanted to just touch on that for a minute, because there's so many people now that I will see that will make, promises, make these huge claims, and then they just never follow through. And you can't to me, it's a disservice to have someone put their faith in you, whether that just be their confidence or whatever it is, and whatever service that you're trying to provide for them, and then not follow through on that. And not only do you not follow through, but you don't follow through and provide more than what they asked for, because that's a really big way to separate yourself. But at the same time, that's a whole different rabbit hole. We won't go down that right this second. But what I'm saying is, I think it was really important that, like you said, you approached that partner who, really didn't necessarily know you that well, but you were able to just say, hey, if I put deals in front of you, can we close them? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. And you said she wasn't expecting you to do that. But the fact that you came back and did it anyway, that's the separator. And that's what I think is really important. And I just wanted to see if you could kind of touch on that a little bit further here for a minute.
Sure. I mean, coming up, I've always had people, disappoint me. People make promises and they fall through. And I've always told myself, I don't want to be that kind of person. Again, it falls from my upbringing. It comes from my upbringing where whenever I see my parents, they don't make promises that they can't keep. So if they tell me, hey, they're not going to tell me, hey, we're going to get you this toy today. And then I'm like, okay, I'm excited. My spirits is up. And then come around, hey, where's my toy? No, we didn't get it. They were never that kind of individual parents. So I've always loved that about them. So I've taken all of that and I just honed it in. So whenever I say something, I try to live my best to apply it. Even if I know it's going to hurt me, I put it out there in the atmosphere. I put it out there in the world. I have to live up to it. So I'm a firm believer that if you say something, live by it, because again, your first impression is always the defining one. So if you meet someone for the first time and you promise them something and you don't live up to it, your credibility is shot. So I do not. My name is my brand. I do not want my brand or my name to be tarnished. So if I cannot live up to something, I will not make that claim or promise. But if I do put it out there, I will try to move heaven and earth to make sure that I live up to that promise. And if I fall short, I will speak to that person and let them know, hey, I tried my best. I could not get there, but let's refine it. Let's retune. Let's talk it over and let's see how we can, get close to it. So I believe promises are very important. You must be a man of your word. It's an ethics thing.
Yeah, 100%. I love it, dude. And that's where it's so powerful, just to know, like, for somebody to know, like, tell me, like, I mean, not necessarily tell me, but like when you're having a conversation with someone and they say that they're going to do something for you, you feel 100% more secure knowing that there's someone that follows through. Like, whether or not it's about them picking up dinner and bringing it home later, or whether it's somebody, I mean, I don't know. I was trying to think of some other examples, but I'm kind of blanking right now. But either way, like, whatever that obligation is, just knowing that you can trust that person makes you feel so much more comfortable. And wouldn't you like to be able to provide that to somebody else? I mean, and especially, like, I totally understand where you're coming from, having, been let down throughout, my life in many different ways, but just being able to then say, I don't want to be that kind of person. And then taking those old experiences and turning them into fuel to then over deliver for someone now. And I think that's extremely, extremely important.
Definitely.
So, just kind of going off of that, I just kind of want to ask, on your journey, like, I know we talked about how you started out in college, which is very similar to what I'm doing. And, you started to kind of make that shift. What was kind of like the first roadblock that you hit along that way that you then kind of had to figure out, like, really, because at that point you still didn't exactly know what you were doing, but you had to kind of figure it out. So I'm just curious, personally, like, what kind of that first roadblock was for you, and then how you were kind of able to navigate your way around that.
I would say, again, it was always the financial aspect of things. Again, young kids, we typically are not making the six figures. So, and of course, as a young kid, I'm trying to stay up with the trends, trying to be cool and so forth. And, now that I'm trying to position myself to start a business, funds are low. That's when all hell break loose, so to speak. And funds are low, nothing is there. So it really puts you in a position where it's like, okay, do I want to do this or do I not want to do this? The fear kicks in. But I personally just found a way to try to make it work. I found, if that means I had to go get a part-time job, again, I was never, gung-ho about jobs, about working in the corporate world. But I had to make the sacrifice. If I had to go get a part-time job, I did that. And, I used the funds that I made to, of course, for my upkeep of my day-to-day, but to reinvest into my business. Paper pads and pens and stamps, they aren't free. So I had to, allocate funds to buying that. If it had to be, because I didn't have a coach, I just reached out. I put myself out there. I reached out again. There are a lot of people out there who are willing to help people, but if you're not willing to reach out, if you're expecting them to just sit there and just come knocking at your door, mysteriously and just say, hey, I want to help you out, you're out of luck. So I firmly believe on getting out and, kicking yourself in the behind and doing some work, doing some groundwork. It's going to take some work on your part. And when people see that you're putting forth the effort and the work, they will stand behind you 100%, and they'll be willing to give you that assistance you need. So those were my main roadblocks, were the finances and not having an adequate mentor or money to pay for a mentor. But I just put myself out there. I found ways to build value into people's businesses, and they were able to reciprocate it with me. And it was a perfect win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I think a lot can be said for persistent consistency. And by that, I mean that you have to be adamant enough about what it is that you want to do, that one thing doesn't completely knock you off your course and cause you to give up. That's the persistence. You have to be almost stubborn enough that this is what you want to do and you know it, and this is what aligns with you, and this is what you're pursuing, and you're not going to let something just rock you off of that goal easily. And that's where your consistent comes in. You have to be stubborn enough to show up every day, to put in the work every day. And first of all, that's going to help you build confidence. But like you were just saying, you have to be confident enough to promote yourself as well, whether that be in terms of starting a business, whether that be in terms of finding an internship, or really kind of another, side example is in the relationship that you're in. Like, you have to be able to promote and voice for yourself, or otherwise you're not going to move anywhere. A quote I heard the other day that I've actually used a lot this week, ironically, is that it's actually from P.T. Barnum, and it says that if you don't promote yourself or your business or whatever kind of your entity is, something terrible happens, and that's nothing. If you don't speak up, promote yourself in some way, no one's ever going to find out about you or the work that you're doing. And I'm not saying go gloat about the work that you're doing every morning or posting about how many reps you did at the gym this morning. If that's what you want to do, by all means, like, do your thing, but that's not all that means. What I'm saying is you can't be afraid to allow other people to discover you. One of the things that I'm coming to terms with lately is that I'm working on like all these different projects, but nobody's going to find out about them if I don't tell at least some people about them. And I'm not going to gloat about the work that we're doing, but I am going to tell them about it to see if I can pique their interest about it. And maybe they'll even be interested in helping me, or, whatever that relationship looks like. But you can't be afraid to kind of step out of your bubble a little bit and, take that step forward, just one step at a time, and create that growth for yourself. If you don't promote, no one's ever going to find out about you. And there's tons and tons of people out there waiting to meet you, and you don't even know it, especially if you're in the service industry.
This is true. I totally agree. Just to piggyback what you're saying, because I stuff like this, me doing podcasts and so forth, this is brand new to me. These are uncharted territories, and I really just started doing these things, really putting my face out there more and more so back early January of this year, because again, I've heard your story of how you came about all of this, this space. And I ran into Adam, meetup on a Wednesday night. And fortunately we ended up in the same room, and crazy enough, we talked and, we clicked. And, later that day, I received an email like, hey, I want you to do my nugget. I forgot the name of his show. The Next Level Nugget. And yeah. I was like, wow. All right, this guy doesn't know me from anywhere. We just met literally like a few hours ago, and I'm getting an email, and he was just, I did it. I was a little nervous, but I did it. And he told me, listen, man, you need to find your voice. Ever since then, that resonated with me so much that I literally put myself out there everywhere that I can possibly. And I'm not looking to, as you mentioned, I'm not looking to boast or, just show off, but I'm looking to make sure that I can add value that I've learned throughout the course of my career, that I can add value to someone else. And a lot of the stuff that I put out there is very motivational and mindset and so forth. And I'm using my voice, just like Adam told me, find your voice, and I'm using my voice. And I have a lot of people who reach out to me like, hey, listen, the video you just posted, it really just helped me, motivated me. I'm like, listen, if it can help one person, I'm happy. I feel good because I know that I'm putting back out there, because a lot of, it's a reciprocation thing. If someone puts it out there for me, I just have to share it out there with someone else. There's no point in me keeping all of this to myself and I'm dying with it. It serves nobody any purpose. If I can help one person every day, I'm set. I'm happy.
100%. I love that. And, that really just makes me kind of come back to, the point that we're talking about here, but it's that fear is often probably the biggest thing that kind of holds people back. And it's honestly so strange because I'm trying to think of how to word this. We like overpay for things to impress people we don't know, or we underpay for things to like impress people we do know. It's like this strangest little concept, but like we're always so worried about what somebody's going to think, but 90% of the time nobody's even thinking about you. And that's honestly one of the things that I'm honestly coming to terms with right now, because like I need to start promoting. I need to start not necessarily advertising, but I need to get my message out more. I need to start educating people. I need to start adding value to more people. And how else can I do that other than promote? And I will honestly tell you that like fear is the thing that's holding me back, but it's something that even like I've realized, but I still have to take uncomfortable action upon that. It's not going to be fun, but it's a necessary step that I have to take. And that's where I know a lot of people that are kind of in the same boat, that there's some sort of fear that this is their roadblock. And I'm here to tell you folks that fear is often the more or less red flashing light that it's telling you to stop. But what you truly need to do is run right through that barrier, because whatever you're thinking of on the other side that's making you afraid is something that you want more than anything. It's making you afraid because you're worried about falling on your face. But sometimes falling on your face is what it takes. Sometimes maybe it takes more than one try. You have to that in essence is what entrepreneurship is. You go try something, you fall on your face, you learn why it didn't work, and then you get up and you try it again. And you try it again. And that's literally all it is. And this isn't just a message for entrepreneurs, but it's a message for anybody. If you need that kick right now, whatever it is that's scaring you, do it anyway. And then tomorrow when it scares you, do it anyway. If you do it for 3 days in a row, I promise you the fourth day, it won't be that scary. Like I can tell you, I did my first 3 podcast episodes. Let me rephrase. My first 2, I was still extremely nervous. I was scared to start. I was still super nervous. And luckily our first 2 guests, bless them, were able to make me feel comfortable before we started to actually record. So that way, that definitely helped, and especially that I was familiar with them. But then I can tell you by the 3rd episode, I was interviewing somebody that I hadn't met prior to that, but I felt comfortable. I wasn't that scared anymore. And then I stepped out and I feel like we had a really good interview. So my point is like, it only takes a few reps, but you have to stay consistent with that. Otherwise, you will fall back and it'll feel like fear all over again. I think it's Grant Cardone has a quote that I'm trying to think of what the right word is. It only takes 12 hours to, what's the word? I don't know why I'm blanking on it right now, but more or less, like it only takes 12 hours to lose your like consistency. Like in terms of like sports, I know a lot of people can relate. Like if you've played basketball, for instance, like you're at a point where you shoot every day. If you miss a day, when you come back the next day, it's going to feel awkward. You have to get back in the swing. It only takes, that one day and everything feels off again. You have to find that rhythm. You have to find everything all over again. So that's kind of what I was trying to say there.
No, well said, man. Again, I look at fear as it can be either subjective or it can be negative. Fear can be a very great motivation. It's everything. Pretty much everything is like a muscle. When you go to the gym, if you never worked out before, you're gonna be sore. It's going to hurt. Once you start picking up the weights or you start, the treadmill, it's going to hurt. But the point is for you to just get up and just do it. Like you mentioned, if you start, the first day you might fall, the second day you might fall, the third day, your body's adjusting to what you're doing. Your mind is adjusting to it. So, you have to train that. You have to train that muscle. If you don't train it, it's going to get stagnant and it's really going to be painful. But if you're consistent at it every day, you're going to see like, okay, what the heck? I could have just done this a long time ago. And I always tell people this every day. I'm like, listen, people tell me, hey, I want to start this, I want to do this. But once you tell me about it, I'm like, listen, stop from the butt, just do it. You're gonna mess up the first time. You're gonna sound, you might sound, boring. You might, slip up, but it doesn't matter. At least you got it done. Now you can go back and review, okay, what could I have done better based on my first initial try? Then you just improve and you get better. I mean, I'm listening to your podcast. I heard all of your episodes, man, and honestly, I would not be able to tell that you were nervous. And they were awesome. They were awesome episodes, and I've learned so much from it. So I'm like, you know what? At least he got started. He just went head on, got started, and here we are today. You're probably 4 or 5 podcasts in, and you're getting better at it. So that fear is now behind you, and now you're progressing, and you're just going to get better over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and that comes back to, like we said, that persistent consistency. I'm more or less, I mean, and luckily I have a mentor in Adam to, help me stay on track and kind of give me that little nudge sometimes when I need it. But like I said, I'm literally just trying to be stubborn enough and showing up every day that eventually I'm going to get good at this, because I will still tell you, I do still get nervous. I do still stumble all the time, as you've already seen, earlier in this interview. Like, I know I'm not perfect, and my goal really isn't to be perfect, but it's going to get better. I mean, and I can tell you that, no, I'm not necessarily 100% confident in my ability, but I am 1% confident that I'm going to show up. And that's where I know I can get myself out of bed. I know I can get myself here, and I know I can honestly put in, I guess you could say, my hours for today. Now, like I said, however, and that's not going to make me Tony Robbins tomorrow. I know that. But at the same time, these are the building blocks, and that's what we're here for.
I agree. Well said.
But yeah, that was a big, huge tangent. Sorry, we kind of just ran off on that one for a little while, guys. But coming back to your story a little bit, I know you mentioned that Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first book that you read to kind of start getting your understanding of real estate and, learning about that whole kind of realm. But I wanted to ask, just kind of for any other, young individuals out there wanting to learn more about real estate, were there any other kind of books that kind of were, recommended or kind of, put into your life at that time that you felt impacted you in a good way, that you also think it'd be beneficial for someone else to possibly pick up and read now?
Sure. I'm not going to sit here and lie, say I'm an avid reader. I'm not. I hate reading, to be honest with you, but I will throw in an audiobook at any given time, and I'll just run with it. But good books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a very great book. I probably read that book about three or four times over, and I refer back to it very often because it really teaches you how to talk to people, how to really approach people in a way that, just to segue into what we're speaking about, where if you're afraid, people won't really come close to you, or they'll sort of steer away from you. But if you're confident, if you know how to draw that crowd, he definitely gives pointers on how to, really attract that avatar or that customer that you're trying to get to. So that's a very great book. I've read the likes of The Power of Habits. I forgot who wrote that. I also read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. That's a very great book on, having a morning routine, just stuff like that. A lot of motivational books. I can't think of the names at the top of my head, but if you don't want to read a book, again, YouTube is your friend. Just go to YouTube and search for motivational videos. I do that very often. I have like a list of motivational videos that I watch on repeat every day. Just, a few minutes, 5, 10, 15 minutes, and they'll just pour into you about motivation, about mindset, about how to really look at the world, how to approach, challenges and so forth. Those are great things, things resources that you can use. And of course, being I'm a believer, I'm a God-fearing man, so I definitely rely on my Bible as well. That's one thing that I love to read. And when I need inspiration, when I need clear my mind or something, I definitely find a lot of inspiration and hope in that. So that's some, for those who are out there who who reads the Bible, that's a great resource as well. But yeah, again, So use YouTube, Google books on motivation, Google books on mindset. Those are the things that really matter, because again, a seed starts in the mind. So if your mind is totally away and totally outside of, the realm of possibility, your body will follow as well. So if your mind is, poison and you're always thinking negative thoughts, you're going to get that same outcome. Again, great movie, The Secret. If you haven't watched that, watch that. What you put into yourself and what you put out there is what you're going to get. So I'm a very big proponent of that. So I always tell people, listen, start working in your mind, start working on the mindset, start, thinking properly, and then you'll start seeing everything fall in line in a better way.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I love that. It's just, it's crazy to me that like you're 100% right. I mean, like I can even look back over the last year or so for myself, and I can really see that when the mindset shifted, that's when everything else shifted. And it's sort of like what you said, what you feed yourself is kind of what you become. Like once you kind of decide, like you have to recognize whether it be the negative thoughts, or you have to recognize when you feel yourself slipping, or whatever, however you kind of want to refer to that. But you have to recognize within yourself the times that you feel you're at your best and the times that you don't. So then
Yeah.
you're able to capitalize on those and see what you did and recognize the things that make you feel good, and maybe produce more of those, maybe do that more, whatever that is, whether it be the type of information that you're taking in, whatever it is. I can tell you that for me, stepping away from social media for a while made a big change. I know before I was kind of involved in all this stuff, I was getting a lot of negative energy from social media. Just, and I mean, it's kind of difficult with everything that's going on in the world right now, but I do know that that's where a lot of it came from. So me, I had to take, a small social media cleanse, if you will, where I was able to step back, kind of tone myself out of that negative energy for a little while and focus on things more positive. And honestly, it worked well for me. I was able to clean up a lot of my thoughts, start focusing on what I thought was really important for me. And, then like I said, once I was able to drive more focus to those things, I started doing things that was more productive, which then in turn made me feel better because I knew I was getting things productive done. And now, that's that's like we said, those small steps where, you take maybe today, whatever that goal is that you have for yourself, think to yourself about what one thing you could do today to move yourself a little bit closer to that, and just do it. Maybe just that one thing today. Maybe tomorrow try to do it twice. Whatever it is, just
Yeah.
start with one step, and then slowly try to build on that. It's a slow burn, but history rewards the patient man. And no, that's not a quote from anybody else. I don't know if anybody's ever said it before, but that's just in my experience, in what I've read, in what I hear, that the long-term thinkers and those who are kind of buy in for the long haul, those are the ones who get the most rewards.
I agree. Totally agree.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think it probably is about time for us to start closing it down now. I know we've been rattling off all kinds of stuff today. Went off on a little tangent myself, but it's been a good one though. I've really enjoyed it. But just I'm trying to think, and winding it down now, I'm trying to think of a good question for you. Um, I asked you about obstacles. I asked you about books. I guess we can go back to Old Faithful. So the one I like to go back to a lot is, I know we've talked about a lot of the stuff that you've realized since you were kind of at that point where you just started in college. If you could go back and have a conversation with yourself, whether it be for 2 hours, 20 minutes, whatever that kind of looks like, if you think you could teach yourself something then that now, what do you think that thing would be?
Great question. Stop trying to please the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
Stop trying to be a people pleaser, and just focus on your goal. Find something that you love to do, that you're passionate about. Just hone in on it, focus on it, and just keep hustling towards it. Of course, be a better money manager. Put your money aside. Don't just go blow it and spend it, on senseless stuff that's not gonna bring you a return on your investment. And then just invest that money into self, into bettering self, into education, into the business that you're trying to start.
100%. No, I love that. And I think that really just kind of encompasses everything that we talked about today. It's just like we said, take that one little step, and that will pay dividends for you. You will get better, you will get more confident, and it will help you find more motivation to continue working every day. Another thing is when you start, finish it.
Yep.
That's another thing. If you can at least, I mean, I know whatever it is, sometimes like it can be extremely difficult. If you start a book that you don't like, for example, grind it out, you're bound to get something from it. Like I can't say enough for books. I was never a reader up until, recently when I started, reading these things. But it's just, I cannot say enough that you will find something out of it and you will learn something from it. Plus, you get the satisfaction of at least having read that book. It's more credible when you can say, yeah, I finished it. No, I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but I did finish it, rather than saying like, oh, I read the first 2 chapters and then put it down because like it's just, it's more, it gives you more credibility, and it tells you a little bit more about your character in a sense. But then on another note, fear. That has been a big, huge thing we talked about today. But as we said, fear is often a sign that there's something you want right on the other side of that. So push through it, tear through it, blast through it, whatever you want to use as your analogy there. Just get through it. I promise you'll feel better on the other side. You'll feel more accomplished, and that'll lead to you doing much greater things in the future. And then one last thing, promotion. Don't be afraid to promote yourself. And I, like we mentioned, not in a boasting sense, but just don't be afraid to promote yourself, get yourself out there where someone can discover you, where someone can discover how you feel, what you think, someone can learn more about you. So the people that agree with you can find you. A lot of people out there right now are struggling to find the crowds that they identify with, or friends that they can talk to, or people that they can talk to truly feel like themselves and talk about the things that they enjoy. Well, those people aren't going to find you unless you start talking about those things. Don't be afraid to step up. This is something that I'm dealing with right now. If you want some help, DM me. I don't care. I will help you. This is something I'm going through right now. People are not going to come to me unless I tell them how I feel, unless I tell them what I've been through, unless I tell them that I understand where they are. People have to know your story in order to, well, first of all, be interested in meeting you, working with you, or any of those things. Don't be afraid to promote yourself. And, I continue to push that because I'm kind of trying to tell myself to do that in a sense right now. I'm trying to get myself more excited. I'm trying to get myself in a mindset that this is something that I'm definitely going to do. And I think you should all do it as well. Once again, sorry for kind of going off on a little tangent there. But Mark, before we close it out, man, do you just kind of have any kind of final thoughts for everybody?
I think we pretty much summed it all up, man. Is as you just mentioned, just trusting yourself, keep digging, keep pushing. Don't let fear hold you back, and don't have that imposter syndrome where you feel like you're inadequate to talk to other people, because those other guys that you're speaking to, they were just like you. They were just at your level. They just ended up succeeding and taking the steps they needed to get to where they need to be, and they're eager to share their story. You just have to really approach them and ask. So yeah, we definitely summed up a lot, man. So I appreciate you allowing me to share my story and allow me to just talk casually with you, man. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Absolutely, man. That's what Ground Zero is all about. We're here to talk about our experiences. We're here to show our vulnerabilities, and we're here to help each other grow. So that's where you came in. You're definitely somebody who's helped me so far, and I was more than happy to have you on. Thank you for being, what's what's the word? I don't know why I'm blanking right now. For being willing to come on and share your story, share your wisdom. I really appreciate it. I personally got a lot out of it in our conversation today, and I hope somebody else did as well. I hope they didn't necessarily just get annoyed about the fact that I talked too much today. So if not, maybe send me a feedback form or something. Let me know, guys. But anyway, thanks so much to everybody who listened today. Thank you again, Mark, for coming on. I can't thank you enough. It means the world to me. And, I really hope that, our listeners are able to get something out of this today. But with that, sorry for rambling so much today, everybody. Always remember, this is Ground Zero, and there's nowhere to go from here but up.